Get your green screen going. All right. Let me go ahead and. Okay. Let me put the volume down real quick. Let's swap it over here so we can. Just trying to get me some. Pull up the arms over real quick. It's supposed to put you back on the charger. Hold on just a second. Hold on. You're wasting my time. Okay. Put you back on the charger. All right, chapter 7, toxic conservatorship. Now, the legal role of managing the affairs of someone, especially a minor or a person with disabilities. Quote, she went through all of the steps to do a conservatorship. She was passionate about wanting to do it, and she wanted me to go along with it. It seemed like a good idea. I would help her as much as I could, but I think she needed 2 people to sign the paperwork, and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. My brother. That was a quote from his brother. I've hurt a lot of people in my life. I've wronged some, I've mistreated some, and I've even robbed some. Then there was the unfortunate group who had to deal with all 3 of those things. Some were people that I loved and still love, ones that thought they could put all of their trust in me, even though for years I trusted no one in return. Then there were strangers who I thought nothing of doing harm to, because that part of my conscience was either blurry or missing. And I know now that what was going on was beyond my control. I know that every time I picked up a drug, I was making the decision to use it. But what was going on in my brain, with or without a substance, was something that had me on autopilot, doing things I shouldn't be doing. That doesn't mean that everything terrible that I've done is suddenly swept under the rug, or that everyone needs to forget about it, because forget about it all because of a mood disorder. Some people I know have thankfully forgiven me. Others I really hope do so one day. And then some I don't care about either way. That's a fact. But even when my healing happened, that hurt can stay in people. I know that. What I also know is that the punishment should fit the crime. I had a turning point in prison, an awakening. Once the drugs were out of my system, a moment where I told myself that this had to be my last time within these walls. There were no ifs, ands, or maybes. I didn't want to leave my wife on the outside and have my kids with no father. But I also didn't want all of the time, money, and effort that I put into my music career to fall by the wayside. The emphasis on that last part, though, was my money. I wasn't going to destroy what I'd worked for, but I also wasn't going to have anyone take over my life and control how or what I did with my money. To tell you the truth, I didn't know what a conservatorship was at first. I had heard Britney Spears was put under one by her family, and she didn't have any rights of her own. I heard she couldn't even make decisions about her own body. So my understanding of conservatorship came from another celebrity's experience with it. Somebody tried to take her rights away. I also remember her shaving her head and everyone having something to say about it. I guess in a way I related to that. Now the day that I found out that my mother filed a petition with the court to put me under a conservatorship, I felt a hurt and a betrayal that I had never felt before. I was angry and I was confused. When you're sitting in prison and now there are no drugs to numb you, you feel hurt differently than you did before. If you lose your sense of smell and taste after C19, let's say, and then it comes back, you smell and you taste like you never had before. That was me with hurt. I felt it so much harder, and the news made me so much sadder because those emotions were locked away for so long. Leave it to the woman who gave birth to me to bring them out of me for all the wrong reasons. I had cases stacked against me, plenty of them, about 5 or 6, enough to bury me for good. And I knew by this point that something was wrong with me, or not right at least, where these episodes happened and bad things resulted. I knew that my addictions were causing something else to happen that led to some chaos that had me sitting in a prison cell. And still, I had this relationship with my mother, where even though I had lost trust in her because of how she handled my money, I still provided for her. I gave her money. I felt like that was my job. It was my duty. She raised me, and that was how I wanted to pay her back. In return, she kicked me when I was down. A what? A conservatorship? I was confused until my lawyer, Drew, broke down what that meant. Beyond my Britney Spears trivia, basically, I felt like my mama and a few other relatives came together to try to take control over me and my assets. Their reasoning was that I was unfit to do it by myself, like I was a child or someone who was in a bad accident and whose brain had stopped working. She had a list of everything that I had ever done wrong, and she laid it out as her substantive reasoning. When I saw it all, I felt sick. There it was, like a list of sins when you get up to heaven's gate and they tell you to go downstairs instead. It was all there, right in front of me. I don't know what had me feeling worse, looking at it all or knowing that my mother and other family members were the ones keeping track with an attorney overseeing it all. An attorney that, for all intents and purposes, I paid for with the money that I gave to my mama. Then more family came forward, people I wasn't even close to, crying and being sad at how they wanted to help me. You could call her Greek chorus in a way. They supposedly didn't want me to commit any more crimes or be the person that I was. And this was the only way that they all thought could equalize me and prevent me from draining my assets. Here's the confusing part of it all for me. If they all really loved me, then what did my money have to do with any of this? Were my spending habits a problem? Maybe. But what did that have to do with any of them? Unless they wanted my money in some way. And this community of people that my mama put together to try to work this all out, who were they to determine what I did with my life and most of all, my money? It didn't make any sense to me. But what did I know? But what I did know was that it wasn't going to happen. Not on my watch. And I was going to fight to make sure that it never did, that it never would. Under the conservatorship, I wouldn't have control of my money. I couldn't buy myself the basic necessities. Hell, I couldn't buy myself a stick of gum, not without my mother's permission. If she took on that role of financial conservator by law, she couldn't spend my money for herself. But there are so many ways around that. And if money was coming in from my music or other opportunities, even while I was in prison, then the money would reach her first. When I'd get out of prison, she would still be in financial control of my assets. Who even knows what the criteria would have been to get it lifted after that? She could have told the courts I was still showing signs of being sick. And so we had to keep it going. There were so many possibilities that all led to the fact that this was just a very bad idea. It took me years to come to the realization that my mama put my brother in a really hard spot. My big brother felt to a certain degree that I was in prison because of him and the lifestyle that he introduced me to when I was a kid. I later told him that he didn't dictate my life's path with that introduction. I wanted money, plain and simple. But I know he carried that guilt with him, that it all could have led to the drugs, the crime, the spending, the prison. So when my mama confronted him to be a part of this conservatorship, he didn't know what to do. In fact, he had to Google what a conservatorship even was. Nobody just casually knows the details of that kind of stuff. And if your own mother is saying she's doing this thing to help her son, your brother, then you're going to want to believe her. My brother helped out a little bit with the paperwork. That much I know, because how do you turn your back on your mama, right? But when she needed him to co-sign the petition, he couldn't bring himself to do it. And I respect him for that. Even if a part of him believed it was the right thing to do, he didn't want to be one of the people to help make that final decision. Instead, though, my mother found some other family member to sign off. My brother straight up saying to her that he couldn't be bought, he couldn't be brought to those extremes wasn't enough to, hold on. My brother straight up saying to her that he couldn't be brought to those extremes wasn't enough to stop her. So she found some other concerned family member. Man, fuck out of here. You have to help me, I told my lawyer, Drew. You've got to get this thrown out of court. Drew didn't do this kind of work at his law firm. Matter of fact, his law firm didn't specialize in it at all. And after me, they didn't do it again. But my trust in people was so fractured that I almost didn't care if my legal team wasn't the most equipped at handling the situation. If Drew still stuck by me after I pulled a pew pew out on him, then I would rather bet on him and his firm than a stranger advocating for me. At first, he wasn't so sure if I should add another lawsuit to my list of cases, since basically I had to sue my own mother for her audacity. My goodness. But it was the only way to make sure that I didn't wake up one morning with my entire life handcuffed to a chair. I had to do what I had to do. I pleaded with him. I was adamant that this needed to be done. I didn't care if it was piled on top of everything else. We wouldn't do this for anyone but you, Radrick, he told me. I appreciated that, and I appreciated his loyalty. They had another attorney in the firm named Marissa, who had the most experience in this kind of matter. That attorney worked hard for me. I'm blinking. I don't know. I see it blinking. I don't know. Listen, I don't know when she started blinking. I apologize. It caught my eye though. Like it definitely caught it. I apologize. Marissa, hey, that attorney worked hard for me. Okay, it's not easy to defend someone like me in this situation. Not when I was sitting in prison, had this long list of things I'd done wrong, and my mama and some family members were basically telling the court, you know what? I think considering his mental and emotional state, we should take it from here. Sounds reasonable to me if it wasn't me. My mama and I used to bump heads before this all entered the courtroom. During my episodes, I would hand out money and not remember doing it. I had people making money off my name, then giving me a little cut like I wasn't the most important person in the equation. I made business decisions when I made business decisions when I wasn't in the right headspace, and it also cost me more money. And when I was having an episode, I would spend a lot of money. They lumped that under cycling, where I'd have extreme moments of spending. Sometimes I'd look around me and I'd see new shirts, new pants, new watches, new chains. How did all that get here? How did all that get there? When did I even buy it all? I didn't remember sometimes, but there it would show up with my money getting spent. I'm trying to get through that chapter 7. You see how fast I'm reading? That was the first break. And what, 3 pages? Stop playing. And we ain't got but 3 more to go. Hold on, let me see. It's 2 pages to go. Please, come on. 18 minutes. Let's go. Hold on. Let me see where I stopped at. I understand her trauma about money. Okay, hold on. Let me go back. Hold on. Let me see why I spent. Okay. Sometimes I look around, I see new shirts. Okay, how did that all get there? Okay, when did I even buy it all? I didn't remember sometimes, but there it would show up with my money getting spent. Gotcha. My mama didn't like that part. She'd argue with me about it yet. And I always wondered if it was about her losing money or me losing money. I understand her trauma about money. When we were kids, my mama worked hard to pay the bills because we were so poor. She had to do everything she could to keep a roof over our heads. We never really saw her cry about it. She was very strong and just kept going. I get a lot of that strength to push forward from her. And I'm sure that when her son is now making all of this money, the memories of being poor are still hanging over your head. They were damn sure hanging over mine, which is why I kept working so hard and putting so much pressure on myself, even to my own detriment. But regardless of all that, it's still not her decision. It's mine. It's my money. And if I'm already giving you some, then you have no right to take more. Fair is fair. It doesn't matter who it is, even your own mother. Okay, so remember, look, I said that yesterday. I'm like, hey. Well, he said that he was paying her, so we got our answer. Child, I thought she just took the money and he wasn't tipping her. He told her to hold the money and then he was tipping her and stuff like that. Maybe he wasn't tipping enough. I don't know. But I told y'all about that greed. Everybody, let's keep going. When she would confront me and say that I was draining all of my money every time I got sick, that's what she called my episodes. My reaction to her came from the memories of her spending all my money when she held on to it. So that's why I'd argue back. My logic here was, if these strangers are taking my money, but then you're out here taking it too, who's better and who's worse? She had a point though. People shouldn't be mistreating me. But she was one of those people. With the money that I had given her, my mother found a well-known attorney to represent her. Someone with enough muscle to take down my legal team if they presented a strong enough argument. It wasn't a fair fight, especially since she went the extra mile to find someone who was seasoned at this sort of thing and could sway the decision in her favor. She put up a good fight on top of it all. I can't have these people taking advantage of my son. She essentially told the court at her reasoning for the conservatorship. I can't have people tricking him in this business affair, tricking him in his business affairs. She said that whenever I was sick, I would spend all of my money. And her argument was that my assets should be kept safe and be protected by her. Anybody on the outside would see this as a mother protecting her child. In my heart, I already knew from past experience that this wasn't what it was. When my mother filed the petition with the court for my conservatorship, I was in prison and I was sobered up. My brain was able to rest and I was clear. That's not to say that I expected everyone to think I was all cured, whatever that even means, but I was showing signs of progress, enough to prove that I had enough will to take my life into my own hands and make positive changes. I hadn't had a single episode in years at that point, and I was actively trying to get out of prison early since I was well into serving my sentence. So why spring this on me now when I was really trying to change? If I was in prison getting into all sorts of fights and having meltdowns, then I could see maybe me looking like a hazard to myself when I got out. But I wasn't. I was doing better and I was getting better. She can't do this to me, I told my brother on the phone from prison. I can't let her have control over my things like that. I know my brother was just trying to do right by everyone, standing in the middle of us. My mama was telling him that she was only doing this to protect me. She was reminding him of the person that I used to be, keeping that image in his mind and hoping those awful memories would get him on board with her. Then you had me on the other side telling him that those days were done now. And for my own personal reasons, I couldn't put my mother in charge of my life like I was incapacitated. It took me years to tell my brother that my mother had stolen my money, and that was why I didn't trust her. I didn't want to put that image of her into his mind, even though she was filling his head with the memories of me at my worst. He'd seen the worst, though, so those reminders didn't help at all. Before I got into prison, when I had an episode, I called my brother afterward. He wouldn't know what to say to me, and I wouldn't know what to say either. I knew I'd done something. I knew things happened, but I relied on other people like him to fill me in. He didn't always want to do that either. It's like when someone gets drunk at a club and does all this stuff, and then the next day call their friends and ask, what happened? Sometimes the friends will want to tell them detail by detail, but if it happens a lot, then eventually people are going to ask, what's the point? My brother struggled with that part, but I did my best to let him know I felt bad for whatever happened when I wasn't thinking clearly. For a good while, doctors were telling me that I was fine and that it was only the drugs that had me acting funny. Then it turned into me going to mental health facilities, where once again, they just blamed the substances. So for my brother to believe me when I said I didn't have much recollection of my behavior and that I felt remorse for whatever went down, it meant a lot to me. He knew I was ashamed. He also knew I was an addict. But that, despite everything else, I was going to just keep going and push forward. It's hard to convince someone that you're better when you're sitting in prison doing the convincing. If my brother didn't fully believe that I'd change, I'd like to believe he heard in my voice that I at least had the potential to now. By the grace of God and by the power of my legal team, the conservatorship was thrown out of the court. I owed Marissa and Drew a lot for doing that for me. It was a lot of pressure. And Marissa said she hopes to never have to do that for another client again. But she did it for me, and it saved me. I was already well into my journey of self-betterment by then, but that threat of losing it all was the battery in my back to never revisit that part of my life. When I got out of prison, the drama between my mama and me continued. She started telling people that I was a clone and that the person who left wasn't her son. The effed up part about that was that I was in the best physical, mental, and emotional state that I had ever been in. And yet she was telling the public that she didn't recognize me. Like my transformation was a bad thing. Maybe it was to her. Maybe she knew that I was mentally strong and that I couldn't be taken advantage of any longer. Nobody could take my money anymore, not even her. But still, I got out of prison and I took care of my mama. She had retired. I bought her a car and I kept money in her pocket. But I never saw her again. My mama passed away on January 5th, 2019. I didn't attend her funeral. but I covered all of the expenses. I was going to make sure she had a respectable send-off, even if I wasn't going to be there. That was how I paid my respects. My mama never got to see me get married. She was still alive back then, but she wasn't invited to my wedding. I didn't want her at any of my shows. I didn't want her to see any more of my success. Nothing. I had to learn to love her from a distance. She broke my heart. And not only because she tried to take my money from me, but because she didn't have any faith that I could get better and in some way wanted to control me. And then once I did get better, instead of celebrating my victory, she tried to use it against me one last time. Oh my goodness. As for my brother and me, we have repaired our relationship too, but we both know it's not the same. I've come to terms with what happened, but circumstance put a strain on our brotherhood. I love him though, and I love my mama, and I don't want anyone to have a bad impression of him or her. As a father, I can't even imagine tying my child's hands like that to where they can't make decisions on their own. I couldn't fathom taking anything from my child either. The guilt alone would consume me. I have to believe, though, that somewhere along the line, even throughout the process of trying to get that conservatorship, my mother was just trying to help me, and that she wanted what was best for me. I have to believe that. Somehow. It's how I make peace with the situation. But she made her decision, and so I had to make mine. Child, I started tearing up there at the end. I was like, oh. Child, he treading lightly too close for me. Ooh. 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 And look, you got to remember, Toxic was the title of chapter 7. And that was the end of chapter 7. 32 minutes. Stop playing. Stop playing. Stop. I said it was 6 pages, y'all. Look, as soon as I skipped through and saw it, I was like, okay, we should be able to knock this out. I said that the last few chapters are going to be real short because look how many pages we got left. And we only have 10 chapters. Let me skim through 8. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that must be a quote. Is this a quote? Oh my God. Who is that? Keisha. Okay. I was finna say, who got 3 pages of quotes? Okay, that's Keisha. Power of attorney. Okay, let me see how many pages 8 is. 1, 2. Okay, lights on, lights out. We shouldn't be having no more lights on, lights out. Oh, child, we ain't got but 5 pages in chapter 8. Not even 5. 1, 2. Okay, there are 4 pages. Oh. We'll have the book done by this week. And then I'm going to try to go ahead and order Kareem. Karen, I think it's Kareem. I believe that's how everybody say it. Kareem Jean-Pierre. I believe it's Kareem. I don't really hear nobody say Karen. I think it's Kareem Jean-Pierre. I'm going to try to see if I can get it in order sometime. Okay, we done. Listen, we're done. That was chapter 7. That was Toxic. And so, that was, child, I was getting choked up at the end. You know, when you have like a strained relationship with your mom like that, you can understand. You can truly understand. You think like, oh, dang, how you know what I'm going through? with my mama and my brother too. I'm like, dang. Child, listen. Listen. We'll have it. Listen, we'll have a little story time. You know, my story times is raw and unfiltered. Raw and unfiltered. That's how it has to be. This is my diary, okay? Only thing is, we won't be doing all that cussing over here like that. And so, I have to go over there on X. But I got my passwords and my usernames and stuff like that, at least to a few of them. I think I got the password to Diary of QLM. So, child, listen, you get cussed out over there. You talking about raw and unfiltered. Oh, we. It goes down over there on X. Stop playing with them. But, at least we was able to get through chapter 7. We'll have the book finished by the end of the week, which of course will leave us with the end of October as well. And so we're already on the calendar to start hibernating come next week. So we'll be off of social media at least for like a week, because we already have like another hibernation coming up for what is that? Black Friday, Thanksgiving Eve or something like that. And so hibernation, you have to take a break from social media. You really have to sort of like get in tune with things. And so since we've been going live for so long and we've been doing live, I want to say for maybe about 3 weeks straight. I think we only had one day off last Monday. And then, of course, we'll take this Monday off, which is technically today, but it'll be tonight. So I won't be on live tonight. I'll come back Tuesday night. Right. Like, not midnight Tuesday, but midnight Wednesday or Tuesday night. You get it. That way so we can finish the book. And then hopefully by the time I come back, I'll have a Kareem book. Hopefully. Child, bills, honey, bills. And her book is $30. Especially from Barnes & Noble. That's why I'm trying to give it a break and let it, chill for a little bit. Let it go on sale or something. Plus that $6.99 shipping fee plus taxes and stuff like that. She was up to like $40 just for the book alone. I'm like, oh my God, ma'am. Goodness gracious. So, but at least we'll have the book finished. Then we'll, like I said, we'll hibernate. We hibernate like the animals. And it's really just kind of taking a break back from social media because we do a lot of social media. And then most importantly, we have to prepare for 2026, which is the positive attitude of 2026. We do have Stan's book, so we'll, of course, obviously read that book after Kareem. I definitely want to get Kareem's book for sure. But I know sometime next year in 2026, we'll take a deep dive into Stan's book. He's over there somewhere. He's in the drawer somewhere. The Power of Your Attitude. It's a book by Stan Toller. It's Toler. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Toler. Just call him Stan, which is a really great book. I try to read it like at least, every 2 to 3 years because it's just life-changing, and those are the kind of books that you really want to hold on to. I think it's another one, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I try to read that one too, like every couple of years. So that might be something that we could also read next year as well. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm gonna go ahead and get on up out of here. I made my time. I ain't gonna be scrolling on Obama's internet as well, just because I finished early, and so. Mwah, mwah.